Hey guys, it's Caban from True Champion Gaming, and today we're going to be going over a film law list. This is a core or an engine that I thought was a little too gimmicky when OP2 released, and I haven't really given the proper time or consideration up until now. This week, however, though, I have been doing quite a bit of building and testing, and it actually does work, and I'm surprised, and it actually plays quite differently than most other law lists. So I wanted to share this with you guys so far. It honestly is a deck that I'm kind of keeping in mind for upcoming events like regionals and stuff. So obviously there will probably be some slight changes, but this has been tweaked already a lot. So let's just get right into it. So obviously we have the Law leader. He has the Shambles ability, which lets you cheat out 5 drops basically, and is the reason that I like Law so much. Then we have a typical Law engine with the 4 Bonnies, 4 beige, and 4 of the 5-drop blocker Law that lets you bounce characters and really take advantage of how much on-play effects that you get with a Law deck. Now, beige sometimes does get cut. I've definitely ran a lot of lists that only ran 3 copies pretty often. However, with this list, you have a very low Supernova count for Bonnie searches, so it's really important to actually run 4 beige in here, and you also have a slightly lower 1-drop count in general. So this is like, I would not change any of these 12 cards at all. Next, we're going to get to probably already a controversial pick, but it actually does fit really well in this deck. We have the starter deck Zoro. So this is a 3-drop 5,000, but unlike its OP1 counterpart, which offers Rush, this one will give you an additional 1,000 power on both players' turns if you put 1 Dawn on it. So if it can't swing the turn you play it, which is definitely the positive side to playing Rush Zoro. However, this deck aims to more basically just put big bodies on the board in a little bit more timely of a fashion than like Green Kid, which is also known for doing that. So this fits in really nicely. It's also a Supernova and Straw Hat pick, just like Rush Zoro is. So this is basically your Supernova count for this deck, which is why you can't cut down really any of these options, because otherwise Bonnie would just be too inconsistent. But this actually does work really well, and I've played this Zoro in other Law lists in events like regionals and stuff, and people will swing like 5k into it when you have a Dawn on it, and during your opponent's turn, you know, it's sitting there, and people think that it's only getting that 1,000 bonus on your turn. So like if you put a Dawn on it and then you swing, it's going to be 7,000 because it's 5,000, 1,000 for the Dawn, and then 1,000 for the effect. On the opponent's turn, it goes to 6,000 because the effect is still active on their turn, and people will waste attacks into it. It happened to me twice in the same tournament, actually. So there's like definitely really big positive for running it for that aspect too, until people really catch up onto it. It's a very underrated card in my opinion. We have 4 Otama. That's pretty standard for a Law list. However, this is one card that I could see maybe cutting down to 3 or something. We actually don't play Vista in the deck or Jet Pistol, which is actually why I think I've been having more success with this film list compared to other people that have tried the film package in Law. I cut out a lot of things that people think can't be cut in Law, but in this type of list, you really don't actually miss them. You do miss them, but you don't need them, is a better way of saying it. So Otama is really great, obviously. It fits in super, super well with the deck, but something that you could tweak the ratios of just a little bit if you wanted to. We run 4 Chopper. I don't think you could really cut this. I think it's pretty mandatory. And then we have 4 Nami. Now, if you've played Law in OP1 and OP2, you've probably noticed that Nami feels a lot worse in OP2. Zoro got a huge bonus because in that deck you run a lot of the new OP2 cards like Makino and Dogras and all that stuff, and just the nature of that deck compared to Law, Nami just becomes really good because she becomes a more viable attacker in OP2, and she's still going to hit pretty consistently in OP2 in a Zoro list. However, in Law, you just aren't running the same Straw Hat ratios. Even in it, like this list is obviously very funky, but in the more normal or standardized Law list in the meta, you do absolutely run less Straw Hat targets than in OP1. So something that I've really been struggling with is Nami's inconsistency in OP2 compared to OP1. However, in this version, she actually feels really good again. I'm super excited to see a Nami, or even to bounce her with lead ability and cheat her out again and keep abusing her effect. But in other OP2 lists that I've ran, I would literally play Nami once, usually like swing it to like clear off some cheap guy off their board and then just let it die. Because like in OP1, you would normally like try to protect it, not swing with it because you wanted to keep abusing it. And that just hasn't felt the same way. But in this deck, she's very, very good. And we'll get into that in a second. And moving on to our first part of the film package, we actually have the green Nami. Now, don't make the same mistake that I did when I first built the deck. I thought that I could search the green Nami from the red Nami because in my mind, I had just thought, oh, yeah, Nami just can't get red Nami characters. But that's not true. Nami cannot grab Nami. So no matter what the color is, no matter what, these two cards would never be able to search each other. She can only search film anyways. So she wouldn't be able to grab her even if it didn't have that exclusion, but Nami cannot grab the green Nami even though she's a Straw Hat. However, this is still really good, and that interaction actually set me back for a little bit because I was having a hard time finding her, but there's a card that I'll show later that actually makes it way more consistent to get her and really pull this whole list together. Nami's really, really fantastic because she has those vanilla stats, 3-drop for 5,000, with also a really good effect. And red and green are pretty much the only colors that get those low to the ground characters that have that kind of ability where, you know, it costs 3, it still gets 5,000 power, and it has a really good effect. Think Rush Zoro, Starter Deck Zoro, and then for green, you have this Nami and like Okiku and stuff. So we're just trying to play to our strengths where we're going to present big bodies for a cheaper cost than basically some other archetypes. So, and this is a big searcher as well. When you attack or play with her, you pay 1 Don, look at the top 3, which is a lot less than most searchers in this game. Most searchers do 5, but with the ratios that we have, you will hit on her enough. It's not going to be every single time, but the fact that you can get it when you play her and then also the next turn when attacking, and if she stays alive, you could just keep repeating that effect over and over again, is definitely what balances it. I've gotten, 4 or 5 searches off of the same Nami, which maybe only 3 of them hit, but that's still 3 cards from 1 card, which is just insane. So this is what honestly drew me to the film package. The other big part of what drew me to the film package is Brook. This is a 4-drop 5,000, which is actually deceivingly really good. It's not as good as the 3-drop 5,000, but he has a counter, first off, which is really important, and he has the ability to cheat out a film or Straw Hat Crew type card with a cost of 3 or less. So he can play this Nami. Now, remember, you'd have to have an extra Don open when you're playing her if you want to get that immediate draw. He can also play the red Nami, the red Chopper, all that kind of stuff, but your best targets are going to be the Zoro to put a really big body on the board or Nami to start getting some searches. And obviously in a deck like Law, where the more you fill up your board, the better in a position you are, Brook is like deceivingly super strong. If you go second, for example, you can go 4 Don, play Brook, play Zoro, and now you have 2 5Ks on board when your opponent probably doesn't have that much set up, which is really, really strong. So he's a fantastic part of the package, and he's Straw Hat. Then we have 2 Frankie. I might actually bump up this count. So this is a 5-drop 7K, which is really good in the deck, even though he has no effect. The fact that your lead lets you cheat out the 5 drops is what makes it so good, because you can essentially play a 7,000 body for 2, and he's also film and Straw Hat. So the really fantastic thing about this is that red Nami can actually search this card out. So in OP1, a lot more Lawless used to run the 5-drop Rush Luffy, which was really nice because that way you could search with a Bonnie to find your lead ability target, or you could use Nami to find that red Luffy as a lead ability target. But now you can actually just search any card that you want to use your leader ability with Nami or Bonnie again, but it's actually a green card instead of being a red card. So it's just really fantastic. You can play Nami, search out your lead ability card, bounce that Nami that you just played to play Frankie. Like, it's a really good combo, and the both Namis can search this because he's also film. And again, the big point of this deck is to actually just put out some big bodies. So even though he doesn't have an effect, like I know some people will run Restand Law or Basil Hawkins or X-Drake. Yeah, those are really fantastic cards, but 7K is actually a really, really, really good number to be at. And the fact that he's searchable by all 12 of your searchers, because we'll get to the other 4 in a bit, it fits in so well with this deck, and definitely is a count that I'm considering buffing up. The only reason that it does work at 2 is because you have 12 different ways of getting to him. This is the last of the characters, or the important characters for the film package, is the 7-drop Luffy. Now, in theory, I had him at 4 in my very first build, quickly cut him to 3, now I'm at 2, and I might even cut it down even more. He's really good. He's a 7-drop 7k blocker that also cheats out film or Straw Hat cards. So obviously the really fantastic play with him is go, if you're at 8 Don because you went second or something, play the Luffy. Luffy's ability gets to play out a Brook. Brook's ability gets to play out a Nami, and then you pay 1 for her effect and draw a card. And you did all of that for 7 Don, which is obviously fantastic, but it's definitely a little luck sacky. You have to have all the right cards for it, and you kind of don't need this card, I found in playtesting, because the Brooks are already cheating out cards, and all the other cards that you're playing in this list are big bodies like 5k and above compared to a normal Law list where you're playing a lot of Vistas and Brooks and stuff like that. He hasn't felt very necessary, and he's an uncounterable card. There's just a lot of reasons that I kind of want to cut this card, but it is definitely fun. And if you want to go for a more high-rolly fun list than a less competitive list, put 4 of them in there. It's really cool to get that combo out. Now, we're going to talk about a card that honestly made this deck for me. I spent 5 hours in the same night just tweaking Law film builds and just getting frustrated and trying to figure it out. And this card brought me so much consistency. 2 years has not really ever been played in Law before. This definitely saw more play in OP1 as well in some mono red decks. But this card in this deck is actually insane because, like I said, the Luffy into the Brook into the Nami is a really good play, but you'd have to have these cards specifically, or a Zoro or something like that. But however, if you have 2 parts of this engine and then you have a 2 years in your hand, you can search out and try to get that last part instead of trying to draw specifically this card. So this basically makes all your copies that you're running, more than 4 copies essentially. Because like I said, this card was really hard to get. Now all of a sudden you're kind of running 8 copies. The fact is you can go red Nami into a 2 years and then 2 years into the green Nami. So you basically got green Nami off of red Nami, and it just is really phenomenal. I would be careful though, because again, Law, you want to fill up your board as fast as possible to use your lead ability. Only use this when you kind of need to. I would never use this on a turn 1 if you can just play a Chopper or a Nami or something instead. I would use this more of when you need to get into this Nami, or when you need to get into a Brook or a Frankie for lead ability or something. But that's a really fantastic card and definitely worth the 4 of space in the deck. Then the last cards are really quick and easy to talk about. These are the only 2K film cards that are possible to be ran, basically. You have the Gordon from OP1, which actually has a really good effect too. This is not a bad card to play. It's a 2-cost 3,000, kind of similar to those stat lines that other Law decks run with the Vistas and the Brooks and stuff. And you get to cycle a card. You bottom deck a card to draw a card, which can actually be really phenomenal given the type of list this is. I have played this card fairly often to just get lead ability going, to get more bodies on the board, and it's not a bad option, but it is a searchable film 2K off the Nami. And then you also have the Chopper. He is a film and Straw Hat, so you can actually get this guy. You're gonna see him every game. You're gonna have such an easy way to get 2Ks. This guy can be searched out 12 different ways. He's not very strong to play. I wouldn't really recommend it. He doesn't really give you any bonus for playing him and then dying to something like a Vista or a Rester. Whereas if you play Gordon, if he's going to die to something like a Vista, at least he already let you cycle and he did something. But yeah, so you actually have 12 2Ks in the deck, which is really solid for a Law deck in OP2. And I just really love this list. It's fun to play, definitely something to bring to your locals, but honestly, I think it's still pretty competitive. I do believe that this is one of the better Law film lists out there. Even though I don't have 100 games in with it or whatever, I have done some testing. I've done a lot of deck building, and I've been playing Law since OP1 came out. And I will say this is the only way that I've really figured out to make film Law work, and it is actually pretty strong. It is a very different play style than how Law normally goes, so you might be able to take your opponent by surprise because they're not expecting the kind of playstyle and engine to be ran. And so you might be able to just close out some games quicker because they're not gonna, by the time they realize what you're doing, you already have a board full of 5Ks and 7Ks. So definitely test it out. If you guys have any ideas, comment below. Like I said, it's not a completely finished work, but I really do like the list. Make sure to like and comment below, and also subscribe to see all of our future lists as well. We have a Facebook page, a Discord that anyone can join, and a Patreon with some free and paid articles on there if you want to improve your competitive play. Until next time, bye.